Oh, why everyone is quitting alcohol and why you should too. So basically, there's a quiet revolution happening and it has got the alcohol industry terrified. Millions of people are waking up to something that has been basically hidden to us for decades, possibly even centuries. And it's one of those things that once you see it, you can't unsee it. And the smartest and most successful people that I know are either quitting alcohol or have quit. And the reason that these people are not telling you is because, frankly, it gives them a massive advantage. And this is basically a hidden trend. Now, who am I? So, if you're new here, my name is Dan Hunter. I actually quit drinking in 2017. A lot of you here will know my story. But it was a difficult, long journey that has culminated in me setting up Clear Mind, Clear Life for people just like you, just like me, that struggle with their drinking. Now, there is a huge distinction between an alcoholic and a problem drinker. Now, an alcoholic is somebody that is waking up in the morning, drinking, is chemically dependent. I'm not a doctor, so I can't, as much as I would love to, I cannot help you. Where I help people is the people that are kind of circling the drain, as it were, like I was. So if you're not quite chemically dependent, then I can definitely help you. And I'm going to tell you a little story now, okay? So there's a book that if you haven't read, you should, which is Alan Carr's Easy Way to Quit Alcohol. Now, he says something in this book. I think there's a lot of gumph in the book that's not, perfect, but there's one thing that really stuck with me is that alcohol is kind of on a spectrum, or your drinking is on a spectrum, I should say. There are people that don't drink, and then you have people that do drink. So you've got someone at this end, which I think he calls your great aunt Maud, and then you've got someone at this end, which is your Uncle Derek. Now, great aunt Maud, she will only have a glass of sherry on Christmas Day. And then there's your Uncle Derek, who cannot get out of bed until he's had a bottle of vodka in the morning. And somewhere along this line is you. And alcohol is a progressive condition. It's a progressive disease, whatever you want to call it. I don't like calling it as a disease, but it's a chronic condition that worsens over time. So if you're here, it's pretty much inevitable that you will end up heading in this direction to where Uncle Derek is. So with that said, you can see how you can waste years of your life drinking, and you'll continue to waste more and more of your life doing this. And this is why people are quitting, because if they're running a business, they've got a high powered job. The people that I work with tend to be quite high performers. So it'll be a lot of ex-athletes or people that will go to alcohol, business owners, lawyers because of the stress, doctors, offshore workers, people that, work a month in really high stress conditions like oil riggers and roughnecks and people like this that then have a month off or a month working and 2 weeks off, and they just drink the entire thing. So if you're one of these people and you are on this spectrum and you're not quite this kind of alcoholic level, I can help you. The whole program it's a 6-month program, but you'll get results in 24 hours, 48 hours really of starting to work together. So there's a 30-day sprint, there's a 6-week course, and then there's the sort of 6 months of follow-up that we do to keep you kind of honest. So if you like the sound of that, if this kind of high-level coaching appeals to you and you want to get alcohol out of your life once and for all, you can click the link in the pinned comment, and that will take you to a video that will explain how we work together and what we can do. So anyway, enough of that, on with the video. Now, why is this shift happening? Why is everybody kind of quiet quitting alcohol? Basically, top performers in every industry have figured something out or are starting to figure something out. Alcohol is performance poison. While everyone else is out there, running around with hangovers, recovering, just trying to kind of get through the day. These people that are quiet quitting, they're out there taking your clients and running circles around you. They're sharper thinking, making better decisions, have tons more energy, and the kind of mental clarity that just gives them an edge over you. Now, when you're doing presentations, if you're meeting a client, if you're asking for a raise from your boss, who's going to get it? The disheveled drunk guy, or the person that turns up having not drunk in 6 months, quit everything, has washboard abs and is looking great. Their skin is clear, their eyes are, bright. Who's going to get that? Is it going to be you, or is it going to be this other person? So the science is out on this. Alcohol disrupts your sleep for 6 days after you consume it. So let's say that again. Alcohol disrupts your sleep for 6 days after you've consumed it. So is it any wonder that you feel like crap? You know that alcohol is destroying your sleep, but sleep is it's the foundation to everything. So if you have poor sleep, you have a poor life. Like, you can't do both. You're not 20 years old anymore. You cannot keep doing this. You have to stop. Otherwise, you're toast. It also comes with a host of other mental illnesses as well that are just so prevalent today. So if you're not sleeping, your anxiety is going to be higher, your depression is going to be higher, not to mention that the alcohol creates anxiety and cortisol release in your body. It lowers your testosterone. It's a depressant. It will start changing dopamine and serotonin in your gut and your brain. We've been through all of this. So you know that this is just not going to be good for you. And this is why you feel like garbage all the time. When you quit, remember that person that used to exist when you were 20, the person that kind of had that unlimited energy, that was full of hope and optimism and had dreams and was able to kind of act upon these things. That person will come back. Now, are you going to be, like you were at 20? No, you're a bit older now, but you start having all of these positive emotions again. You start getting all of this kind of serotonin and dopamine back, and you become a lot more optimistic, which, the power of positive thinking, I know it's quite woo-woo, but the power of positive thinking is huge. There's a great quote from Henry Ford, I think it's attributed to, which is, the man that thinks he can and the man that thinks he can't are both correct. And now let's talk about money. So the average person in the US spends $1,300 on alcohol in a year. Okay, that's the average person. Now, I'm guessing that you are spending a lot more than that. I mean, I work with people that are spending that in a month. Like, I was probably spending that in a month on alcohol and going out and, all of the kind of ancillary costs of takeaways and, just junk and taxis and just crap that you just spend money on and drunk purchasing things. And most people that I work with, their average saving is between $3,000 and $5,000 over that kind of 6-month period. So, it's, in terms of an investment, it is something that kind of pays for itself. Also, when you're not drinking as well, you kind of become the most interesting person in the room, especially if you're surrounded by sloppy drunks. But, I don't recommend hanging out with drunk people when you're sober. It's really not the most fun. But you're actually present in conversations and you're actually able to understand what's going on. You have much more capacity to listen, which, as every good salesperson knows, you have 2 ears, 1 mouth, which means you should be listening twice as much as you should be talking. And generally, you're just going to have more gravitas. So this was a big one for me. When I would meet clients, I would usually drink wine and they would drink as well. But obviously, since I quit drinking, I'll go meet a client, I'll have a dinner with them or have a lunch, or we'll have some kind of, meeting that's out of an office where drinking is sometimes expected. You just come across in a much more professional and controlled way. As I say, the word is gravitas. Now, when I work with people, there are generally 3 types of people, and let's see if you fit into one of these categories. So generally, when someone comes to me, they have one of these 3 sort of motivations or a variation of these motivations. So number one is the high achievers. These are the people that realize that alcohol is kind of a ceiling for their potential. These are the entrepreneurs that want to kind of go to the next level. These are athletes that are maybe after their career, they're unsure what to do. They've fallen into drinking. I've even worked with some athletes that are on their kind of come up, and they know that drinking is kind of limiting their potential. And these are also the executives and the business owners that need to think clearly under pressure. Think lawyers. Think doctors, surgeons. We never like to think of these people as being drinkers or having a drinking problem, but this affects all walks of life, all people. And you don't have to be, a raging alcoholic, as we talked about before, to have a problem with drinking. And a lot of these people, these high achievers, they see quitting as a competitive advantage. I'm wondering if that's maybe you. Type 2, the health optimizers. So these are the people that have realized that alcohol is harming their performance and what they're working towards. Because you can't build muscle effectively when you're drinking, and you sure as hell can't lose weight. You can't have clear skin, good sleep, or good mental health. And these people realize that they're kind of working against themselves every weekend. Like they have a really solid week and then they'll binge at the weekends with their friends, and they're stuck in a bit of a cycle and they don't know how to get out of it. So again, I'm wondering maybe if that's you. And type 3 are the people that I would call like the life maximizers. So these are people that have realized that maybe they have like 80 years on the planet, and maybe they're 30, 40, 50, 60 years into those 80 years. And what they don't want to do is spend the time they have left in a state of ill health, or with brain fog, or with mental health issues, with a whole host of other things that alcohol brings with it. They don't want to miss moments with kids, forgetting conversations, or basically living life at kind of 40% capacity. So we've seen the 3 types. Now, what's going to happen if you decide to join them? So firstly, probably in the first week, there's going to be shock. Your sleep's going to improve, your skin's going to get better, and you'll probably start feeling emotions more positive than you've felt in years. After about a month, your thinking becomes a lot sharper. Your anxiety is going to start to lift, because I work with a lot of people that have, basically mental health issues that are caused by alcohol, and they're not just going to disappear overnight. I wish they would, but it's not far. It's about a month, and that's why I'm here to help you. You also realize how much time you're wasting on drinking, buying alcohol, consuming alcohol, hangovers, wasted productivity the next day. You start adding these numbers up, and it is freaking terrifying how much of your life is slipping away into this kind of oblivion. And generally, after about 3 months, this is the point where we have the transformation. This is the point where people really start to notice, and people will, maybe pull you aside at work and just say, "Hey, what are you doing different? I've noticed a real difference in you," or your wife or your kids, or hell, your dog. Do you know what I mean? Maybe your dog's not going to talk to you. Perhaps if your dog's talking to you, maybe you've got bigger problems than I thought. But this 3-month mark is when people are actually going to notice, because people are kind of a lagging indicator. Do you know what I mean? They take a while to catch up, because they're so self-absorbed within their own kind of problems that it takes a while for them to notice that your transformation is happening. You'll start to look better. You've lost a load of weight. You're much sharper. You're funnier. There's a whole host of things that just over time sort of coalesce into this ball of positivity that's surrounding you. And this is the point where you realize you've kind of been playing life on hard mode up to this point. And by the time we've reached month 6 in the program, this is the point that is the advantage. You are operating at a point where people that are drinking just cannot touch you. and it's like you're at an escape velocity, you know? They will almost never catch up to you because you have escaped that kind of gravitational pull of the alcohol, and you've escaped the gravity of it, and you're off. It's going to take them so long to catch you that people are going to be left in your dust. So that's where you could be, okay? We've seen what's going to happen after you're not drinking for a week, a month, 3 months, 6 months. Now, let's look at the situation at the moment. So what is the uncomfortable truth amongst all of this? The uncomfortable truth is that alcohol is a legal and legitimized way for people to self-medicate to deal with their anxiety and their depression. And as we've talked about 1,000 times now, the cruel irony of all of this is that alcohol is actually pouring petrol on this fire. You get a short-term release for a kind of long-term downward kind of spiral. It's actually amping up all of this anxiety. It's amping up the depression and generally just creating bigger problems in your life. And here's a big statement, okay? And I want you to think about it. I sat down one day. This was actually before I quit drinking. It's about 6 months before I actually quit. But I sat down and I wrote a list of kind of shitty things that had happened to me in my life and how I had ended up in certain situations, how something hadn't gone my way. And in basically all of those situations, alcohol was involved. And it made me wonder, what if I hadn't been drinking? What if I hadn't had alcohol in my life? How would those situations have gone? Now, we can't change the past. It's impossible. And for you to look back and just be kind of like, oh no, that's terrible, that's going to increase depression. You can't look back like that. But what you can do is you can stop now and look forward. Again, the old Chinese expression, I love a quote, I love an expression, but the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time to plant a tree is now. So this no drinking movement, as we were talking about in this video, is accelerating. It's loads of people quitting. Younger people are not really drinking as much these days. Gen Zers are just not really drinking at all. They kind of see it for what it is. I'm Gen X. I know a lot of Gen Xers, boomers, millennials, these kind of people. These are the ones that drinking has a real grip on. I think especially Gen Xers, like, you know, we were sort of kids of the 80s when there was excess and, you know, there was cocaine and drinking, and then we kind of came of age in the late 80s through the 90s, and, you know, there was just no help, there was no YouTube, there was nothing, and it was cool to drink. So yeah, it's an accelerating movement that we need to get on board with, because alcohol's getting more expensive. You smoke when you drink sometimes, you do stupid things when you drink, you sleep with people you shouldn't sleep with. You know, we've all done it. So the way that I see it is we have two choices. Okay, the first choice that you have is to keep drinking. Stay where you are and just keep drinking because it's normal. You can then watch the alcohol-free crowd just pull ahead of you in every area of life while you're just stuck repeating the same old patterns, Groundhog Day. That same cycle of feeling good for a couple of hours just to then crash for days afterwards and destroy your mental health. Or there's path two. You know, you can join the revolution. You can see what your life is going to be like when you stop drinking. You don't know. And I know it's scary. That's the biggest thing. It's huge. That's why the program exists. That's why I'm here to help you. That's why watch the video below. That's why come and talk to me, is you will see what your life can be without alcohol. You don't need to be stuck in these kind of BS patterns. So stop handicapping yourself and see what you are really capable of. And I know what you're thinking. You're probably thinking, oh, I don't have an alcohol problem, because, you know, I didn't think I had an alcohol problem. People that are drinking a bottle of vodka in the morning don't think they have an alcohol problem. But you don't necessarily have, you know, a drinking problem, but you do have an alcohol problem. And most people that I work with don't think that they have a problem. It's only when they quit that they realize what a kind of shit show their life has been. There's an expression that I use in the program, and it's in the course. So if you come on board, we'll go through all of this. But my grandmother had an expression which was, it's a noise you don't hear until it stops. So think about a car alarm that's just kind of going off in the background, and it's been going for an hour. And at some point, you just get used to the noise. And then when it stops, you suddenly feel this kind of wave of silence wash over you. Or it's like the hum of a refrigerator that just suddenly stops, and you're like, oh man, how long's that been going on? That's what quitting drinking's like. That's what I can do for you. And you don't need to wait for some rock bottom moment, as they call it, to do this. In fact, the best thing that you can do is to not wait for that rock bottom moment, because thankfully I was at this point. I was right on the cusp of that Alan Carr's, his spectrum. I was right on the cusp of becoming sort of chemically dependent. And you absolutely don't want to get to that point. That's the point where we lose businesses, families, jobs, our lives. You don't want to get to that point. So if you are curious to see what your life will look like without alcohol, I can show you exactly how to do that in 3 to 6 months. Results are going to happen within 24, 48 hours, but this is a progressive thing that we're going to be doing. So you will be free from alcohol within 3 to 6 months if you do what I say when I say it, and we'll work together every week, check in. I can help you shortcut that entire process. It took me years to understand all of the lessons that I have distilled down into this kind of 3 to 6 month program, because the reality of it is stopping drinking is not just about not putting alcohol in your mouth, okay? Now, that might sound strange or counterintuitive, but it's about far more than that. There are so many kind of pitfalls along the way that you just haven't even thought of. You don't know what you don't know. And as these emotions start to hit you, and as the temptation to relapse, as friends, family, life gets in the way, you're not going to be armed to deal with the things that are coming your way. So for a relatively small cost, you can be armed basically for the rest of your life. So if that sounds good, click the link in the pinned comment, have a look at the video, and hopefully we can have a chat. So that'll do it for today. Stop living life on hard mode. Come and join me on easy mode, and I will see you in the next one.